Hey family, welcome again to another video. And as always, really appreciate you guys clicking in and joining me for this another very important topic. And we just kind of continue. It's like I'm doing these things I got like different pots going almost, because we've got the research team where we delve into things that are talk about topics like what we're going to talk about today, but we go a little bit deeper for the general YouTube channel audience. We do talk about some of these things, but I try to talk about it more on a top level, and just so that to keep people engaged and listening to it, and then there's another. Then with the men, I may share something, and it's so it's a balancing act, and how much do you delve in depending on the audience that you're talking to. And so with YouTube, just know when we talk about these things, we're really not getting in as deep as we can go, just for the sake of again, you want to keep, like I just mentioned, you want to keep people engaged and interested in the topic. But if you want to go deeper with this stuff, we do have our research group, and the way you join that, just go to the front of our YouTube page. There's a join button there. Click on that. There's a whole intro video, tells you exactly step by step what you got to do. It's very simple, and would love to have you, and then we can learn from each other. So you could join that too if you want to go deeper in these topics. But for now, today, what we're going to do is we're going to eventually get to asking the question, or answering, I would say, at least part of the question, or giving part of the answer, is where did this whole concept of Sabbath, where did it actually come from? Now, for many people in the audience that we have, it's just a simple, well, it came from the Bible. That's where it came from, and that's all we need to know. And this is where, again, anytime, and I know I sound like a broken record every time when I start off these videos, when we're talking about these topics, but it's so very important for you to really get what I'm about to say. And that is, again, one more time, when our people were brought over here as slaves, you were brought over here to do just that, to act as a slave. How do slaves act? They're very obedient. They're supposed to be obedient. They're beaten to be obedient. And you were brought over here to be an individual that either say yes or no. And do exactly what you're told, and that's it. This is what happened in slavery, with our people. We were brought here to be obedient. And so and then as time went on, they introduced Christianity, and then, at another level, because they kind of gave us a preview of it on the continent, but then they fully baptized us literally into Christianity, once we got to, in Central South America and here in what we call today the lower 48s. And we were baptized into this thing, and they gave us a Bible after they allowed us to start reading. They said, hey, listen, here's a Bible. You can read that. It's not our word, meaning it's not white man's word. It's God's word. And them knowing that we were a deeply spiritual people, they knew that we will resonate with that. And from that point on, we have been extremely by the book when it comes to the Bible. I mean, we have taken our training very well and never questioning it, and just coming to already at the conclusion that it came straight from the mouth of God, straight onto this paper, and you better not question anything about it. And our people, I would say, near the top of the list. If you look at everybody in the world, I would say our people are near the top of the list as the most obedient to this book. And is there truth in it? I'll answer this again. Absolutely, there's truth in the Bible. However, there are things in it that are not true, and there are things in there, and we're talking more from a historical standpoint. That's what's important. So if you're watching this and you're listening to me and you're saying, well, Dwayne, listen, it doesn't matter, I just believe it. Okay, that's fine. If that's what you want to believe, that everything in it happened, everything is historically accurate, If that's what you choose to believe, then that's you. I don't have any problem with you. I don't. I really don't. But just know that this is something that you're choosing to believe. But you can't choose to believe something and then truth doesn't come along with that. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can choose to be the color blue. It doesn't mean that I'm blue. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the whole, you got this orientation thing. I identify as a dog or something like that. It doesn't mean that you're one. It just means that you're choosing to pretend that you're a dog, okay, or a cat or whatever it may be, right? Well, it's no different for Bible believing people. You are choosing to believe or presupposing that this is truth. Okay, fine. That's your belief. However, that your belief doesn't automatically by default make it true. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is a very important point. So for us as a people, we have been forced to presuppose that this book is absolute truth and we are never to question it at all. And so going fast forward, there have been a lot of offshoots, but we've still stayed on this I would say a Bible plantation. We've still stayed on it. So even though you may have people say, well, listen, Christianity, I ain't got nothing to do with that. Christianity is the white man's religion, is this, that, or whatever. But now I'm a Hebrew. Okay, but what is your central book as a Hebrew? It's the Bible. It's the same book that Christians have. So no matter what you call yourself, if you still are using this book that was birthed out of Christianity as your central guidebook, then it doesn't matter what you call yourself. You're still under the umbrella. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is why it's very, it's laughable when you think about it. I mean, when someone can say that I don't have nothing to do with the Christians and Christians are heathens and Christians this, that, or whatever, but I'm a Hebrew. Okay, but you're still using their book. It's like I used this analogy before. It's like, trying to make a difference between skinheads and the KKK. And there's going to be some differences, but at the end of the day, they do share a hatred and they also share some other interests as well. And so, so it doesn't, one may dress with a hood, the other may have a bald head, but at the end of the day, they still are centralized. They are in agreement. And that's no different. That's what I say when it comes to, whether if you call yourself a Hebrew, Seventh-day Adventist, Baptist, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, Catholic, whatever. If the Bible is your central manual, then that's what you abide by. You still fall under the big umbrella of Christianity. Okay. And this is something I'm just trying to make sure we understand as we proceed on, because we got a lot of folks who you could say that a million times and it still goes over their head. So anyway, I wrote my notes down here to make sure I stay on point and I'm not just keeping y'all too long here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, as we're making our way to the central topic of this video, what I would like to do is to take you back a little bit and show you, this is something that we covered in our Who in the L series, which, by the way, we do have a podcast for that in case you're not aware of that. And what we did was we took this series, which is very long, and we broke it up into 1/2 an hour pieces. All you got to do is go to our community page and you'll see anywhere where we mention it. We always put the link there. Just click the link and then that will take you to that particular episode. But go even further than that and just go ahead and click on subscribe. That way, anytime when we upload the latest installment, you'll just get the notification and you won't have to rely on, I forgot to go to the, you don't have to do that. You'll just get the notification. Okay. So we're just doing little things like that to help you out so that you can, can kind of track with us and follow along. Okay. So one of the things that we covered in that series is, and we actually did a video on this. We may have done even 2 videos on this, but I want to do a miniaturized version of that. Okay. This is how we're just, again, some things are going to be repetitive, because you will be surprised at how many people miss these things. But anyway, just again, let's just go over, let's hit this part real quick and then we'll get into the Sabbath part. Okay. So one of the things we talked about is the history of the holy days, if you will, the Hebrew holy days. And when you listen to a lot of Hebrews on YouTube, they're very adamant about making sure you don't acknowledge any of the pagan holidays. And this is a pagan holiday. Every Christmas that comes around, they're going to do videos on, what's coming up. They're going to tell you how evil and wicked Christmas is, or they're going to tell you how evil and wicked Thanksgiving or Easter or all of that. They are very adamant on that. However, the inconsistency is there. And what do I mean by that? For that, I'm going to take you to the history behind what actually influenced the calendar days of what is known as Israel, okay, or for the Hebrews. So let me go ahead and pull this up here on the screen for you. And again, we actually covered this, but I'm just going to go over this again, so that you can, just for the sake of this video. Okay. So I'm not going to really try to pronounce these names here, but what you're looking at on the screen right now is the Babylonian calendar. So you can see, right here on the screen, you can pause the video if you like and just take a look at it. We'll be seeing these names again. Okay. But this is the Babylonian calendar. This is what you're looking at right now. Okay. All right. You see that? All right. So now we're going to go and open this up. And now we're going to look at the Hebrew calendar. Well, take a look at this. All right. So, for example, the first month is in the Hebrew calendar is Nisan, kind of like the car, right? Or Nisan. I guess that's how they pronounce it. The Babylonian calendar is Nisanu. All right. And let's go to the next month is Ayaru, and this is Ayar. All right. For the Hebrew, Samanu, Sawan, Duunzu, Tammuz. Okay. You may know that name. Abu, Abe. All right. Elulu, Elulu. It goes on down, and you can see the similarities. It's not a coincidence. I don't know anybody that's honest that will look at this and say it's just a coincidence. No, it's not a coincidence. What this highlights is how many of the cultures, ancient cultures, particularly in that Mediterranean area, and it's not exclusive just to the Mediterranean, Mesopotamian area, but you'll find this all over. You'll find this even in Africa, where you had different cultures that lived in close proximity of each other. They tend to kind of borrow things from each other, right? Israel is no exception. So this whole notion that Israel is set apart or all of that stuff, we're looking right now at their calendar. There is nothing about this calendar that's set apart. Their calendar comes straight from Babylon, okay? But it gets even deeper than this. So let's take a look, and we're going to go to the next page here. And so, if you want to understand something, right? So you got Nisan. What Hebrews are doing is, if I can move that over, if you can kind of like imagine not seeing the Babylon side, but just seeing the Hebrew side, our Hebrew friends, they just look at this and think that's it. Like this is the calendar that's it. Like the Babylonian calendar is like la 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 la. I don't hear it, I don't see it. La 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 la. It doesn't exist. La 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 la. That's exactly what you're doing. But what we're doing. But if you want to understand something, you got to go to the foundation of it. So we're starting at the Hebrew calendar, but we went back further and we said, oh, actually they got that from Babylon. Oh, okay. So, I wonder what these names mean for Babylon. All right. So that's what we're doing right now. So let's go to the next screen and let's take a look here. All right. So the first month, again, I'm going to do what I can for some of these names, but I'm not Babylonians. I can't speak the names here. Okay. So here we go. So as you notice, and you can take a screenshot of this if you wish as well. Okay. So if you notice here on the screen, you see on this side, on the left hand side, you see my mouse is the Babylonian names for each one of these months. All right. The same list I showed you on that other page. This is the list right here. You see my mouse? This is all the Babylonian stuff. Over here on the right hand side is the Hebrew months. Okay. Now, the difference between that one and this one is that this one is going to give us a little bit more information because we're trying to understand what is the origins or what are the meanings of these Babylonian month names and what's attached to it. Okay, so we'll just start with the first one, Nisanu. Okay, it means month of beginning, and the presiding deity isn't Yahweh, it ain't El, it's actually Bel. All right. So that's a god. All right. And then they give you the zodiac sign. All right. So in the Hebrew calendar, Nisan is actually still carrying over the name of the presiding deity, the Babylonian deity, which is Bel. Okay. The next month, which is Aru, Aru. Hold on, let me see what they say here. Yeah, Arahu. Okay, there you go. All right. So what's the presiding deity for that? Ea. All right. And then here's the Hebrew equivalent. All right. Next one, Samanu. What's the presiding deity for Samanu, the third month? It's Sin. Sin. And who's Sin? Sin is the moon god. All right. You ever heard the wilderness of Sin or Mount Sinai or Sinai? We'll talk about that at one day. We actually talked about that in great length in our Who in the L series. But, one day maybe we'll talk about it on this platform too. Okay. So Sin is the moon god. All right. And that is directly related to the Hebrew name. All right. And Damunzu means the month of Tammuz. All right. You know who Tammuz is. That's a god, Babylonian god, with a very interesting history. All right. And the Hebrews kept the name. They kept the name of Tammuz. I thought they were set apart people though. I don't know why they did that. Anyway, let's continue on. All right. And it goes on. I'll go through a few more. The month of Abu, the presiding deity is Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, all right, is the presiding deity. And then Hebrews kept the name. They kept the name there. And Elulu, that's the 6th month. The presiding deity is Ishtar. And then the Hebrews kept the name again, Elulu. All right. And then it goes on. You got Marduk. You got all of these ones here. And then they kept all the names. Like I'm at the 11th month now. I'm just skipping down. You got Sabatu. The presiding deity of Sabatu is Adad. All right. And guess what the Hebrews call their month? Shabbat. All right. So the 11th month in the Babylonian calendar is Sabatu. The Hebrews, what they did was they kept the name, which mean by keeping the name, they also kept the meaning of that name, which is a dedication to the god Adad. Okay. So there you go. So let me see. Okay. I think this slide here is actually showing you how this trend of naming each month is named after a god. It continued. The Romans and the Greeks, they continued that. That's what we have today. We live in a very Greco-Roman society. They really didn't go they didn't really go far at all. We are very much still within a Greco-Roman society, from the way our government is run to the way our judicial system is run to even the months of the year. It's very Greco-Roman. And you will also find a lot of Egyptian influences as well, such as when we say hours, The hours of the day. All right. How many hours of the day? We have 24 hours. Those 24 hours are split into two 12-hour sections, right? The 12 hours, where did the 12 hours come from? Well, it was actually Horus. Horus, this is where it came from. So where they get the 12 from? Okay, so you have Horus is an Egyptian god, and he represents one of the things he represents is the sun. He takes 12 steps to go across the sky. And so that's where they get, hours. They just flipped it, and that's what it is. So when we say how many hours is it to whatever, we're actually saying Horus. So this whole this tendency of naming the months and the days and everything, it's all tied to Greek, Rome, and Egypt. All right. And you can throw in Canaanite in there too. All right. But that's what, and then Phoenician. All right. That's where all of this matrix that we live in today is one that encompasses most of what we call today what they say the birthplace of civilization. Remember, we talked about that. That is the Mesopotamian area. Okay. They say mankind began in Africa, but there was a whole long arch between mankind being birthed and mankind becoming civil by going up north into the Mesopotamian area, and that was considered the birthplace of civilization. Remember, we talked about that. We got a whole video on that, and you can check that out on your own time. Okay. And so anyway, as we're moving forward, the thing I want to emphasize again, I cannot stress this. I cannot emphasize this enough. When we're talking about Greek, Roman, culture, what you have to understand is that they are so intertwined, and not just Greek Roman culture, but all the cultures around that Mediterranean, Mesopotamian, ancient Mesopotamian area, that entire area. When you start digging into the histories of these different groups, you heard me just mention the Phoenicians being one. You got, we talked about the Egyptians, the people will Babylon, a lot of these ancient cultures all around there, they literally just borrowed from each other. So when you start digging in to some of these cultures, you're going to find, influences from other cultures. That's why when you pick up the Bible, you can find Greek influences, you can find Roman influences. It is not a pure Hebrew book. That is one of the biggest lies that I've heard people repeat over and over again, as if this Bible just kind of found its way through all of the hustle and bustle of all these different cultures and religions and is totally isolated from all of that. That is not historically true. Again, that may be something you choose to believe, but historically that is not true and it's not accurate. And you would be laughed out of any real discussion when it comes to history if you ever came up with that repeating that, because it's not true. It's not true. So all of these different religions and cultures, they borrowed from each other gods. You know how many of our people, we understand how the Greeks came into Egypt, how they took and borrowed a lot of the gods and the pantheon of gods, and they just basically carbon copied and then renamed it. Well, it wasn't just the Greeks. The Romans did it, and all these other groups, they were doing it too. They were doing this all the time. Okay. So I'm just taking this time to really emphasize how all of this stuff is intertwined. When anything coming out of that region, I mean anything, it is not a pure single kind of thing. Now, they took it kind of like how black people take how soul food was birthed, was pretty much taking the foods that were given to us, from the master's table, and we made something of it, and it was uniquely ours because we added our own ingredients. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's where soul food comes from. All right. Largely it comes from that. But religions are no different. It's literally no different. Any religion, I don't care what belief system you part of, for the most part, it's not pure. It's always pulling from something else. Okay. And we'll, and towards the end, after we cover this Shabbat thing, I'll touch on something that we may touch on in the near future. Okay. That give you even more example of what I'm talking about. So I just want you to really understand that point as we move on. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to turn the page here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at Shabbat, Sabbath, Sabbath. Sorry, I keep saying, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sabbath. That's what I meant to say up to this point. All right. So now what we know from the Sabbath, for those of you who are familiar with this channel, you know, I'm sure, you know, there are certain channels that you watch that just talk very extensively about all the things you're supposed to do versus the things you're not supposed to do on the Sabbath and all of that stuff, right? We just had someone ask a question recently about, well, do you fast on the Sabbath, or are you able, you know, stuff like that, okay? And so all you know is the Sabbath. Where did you get that knowledge from? I'll pause for a moment and I want you to think about it. Was your knowledge of the Sabbath, did it come from a source outside of the Bible to you? I want you to think about that. Did your knowledge of the Sabbath, was that something that was passed down through your immediate family? Or was it something that came exclusively from the Bible? If it came exclusively from the Bible, you just made my point. Again, all the knowledge that we have when it comes to the history of the Bible, it comes only from the Bible. All right. But this is why it's important for our people to go beyond that and to understand the history behind these things. And by doing so, our minds are more free and we can get a better picture of, okay, this is where it came from. Okay, so let's go. All right, so one of the sources of this word Shabbat or Sabbath, I keep mixing it up. One of the sources of this whole thing called Sabbath, it comes from, and notice I'm emphasizing one. Okay, there are other sources as well, but we're going to just emphasize one. Remember, I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to keep it kind of top level here. Okay, one of the sources of Sabbath, it actually traces to the Sumerian people, the Sumerians. Okay, the Sumerians, and I'll just read it here, just something I have here. The Sumerian concept of Sabbath. See, that's why I was saying I was jumping ahead of myself earlier. It's actually spelled S-A-B-A-T. Okay. S-A-B-A-B-A-T. Now, one can say, well, because you don't want to just go by the spelling alone and just draw a conclusion. You also want to look at, are there similarities there? You know what I mean? Are there similarities between these two words? So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at Sabbath and Sabbat. Okay. So one more time, the Sumerians had something, they call it Sabbat, S-A-B-A-T. All right. All right. And anyway, the Sumerian concept of Sabbat sheds light on how ancient cultures may have influenced each other. And it goes on. It says, especially in the context of days marked by special religious cultural practices. All right. All right. So let's go here. All right. So the meaning. OK, let's start off with meaning and interpretation. The Sumerian term Sabbat, remember, S-A-B-A-T, can be interpreted as mid-rest. All right. From the Sumerian words sa, S-A, meaning heart, and bat, meaning cease. Okay. Come on now. Okay. The term has been associated with periods during which activities were restricted, potentially due to religious reasons, or as a sign of respect for the gods. I say gods as in plural. Okay. All right. We're going to go back. We're going to come back to that. All right. Next one. Ritual significance. It says Sabbath days in Sumerian culture were times when certain activities were curtailed. This could include avoiding work or other regular day tasks, which might disturb the divine order or the gods themselves. Remember about the whole Sabbath. Hey, if you break any rule of the Sabbath, you're going to make God angry. All right. Well, that concept isn't unique to Israel or, to the Hebrews. That is not an original concept. They got it from one of the sources. They got this whole concept was from the Sumerians. Okay, let's continue. These days might have been used for appeasing the gods, perhaps to avert disaster or bad omens. And when you look at our people today, and just like I just mentioned, some of our people who are in the Hebrew matrix still, some of them are just on pins and needles because there's just it's almost like they're scared. Can I do this on this day? I don't know. I just want to make sure I'm right. I want to make sure. Well, again, where did they get that? Where does that come from? The Sumerians, all right? Because they wanted to make sure they didn't make their God angry because they turned a light on. You know what I'm saying? That's where it comes from. All right. So number 3, let's see. Comparative cultural practices. Similar to other ancient Near Eastern cultures, the Sumerians believed that specific days were more suitable for certain activities than others. These practices, observed in cultures like the Babylonians and the Assyrians, often related to omens and divinations, integral parts of the Mesopotamian religious life. And then the last point is influence and spread. As one of the earliest known civilizations, Sumerian culture and religious practices had a broad influence on that region. Okay, this is what we were just talking about. Their ideas and rituals could have spread through trade, conquest, and interaction with neighboring groups, including the early Hebrews. This exchange could have contributed to elements to the development of the Sabbath, particularly the idea of regular, divinely ordained rest days. Okay. So again, one more time, the concept of this whole idea that Israel or the Hebrews, they got this idea of setting aside one day to appease God. They did not come up with that on their own. And so at this point, you have to ask yourself, then why is it then, I mean, if God, all right, their God is so unique and so holy and so set apart, then why is it that he had to copy off of what was already being done for other gods? That's something for you to really take time and really answer that. Okay. All right. So who were these gods? Okay. Who were these gods that they were doing it for? All right. And this is just some of the gods. Okay. These are some of the Sumerian gods that they were setting aside these days for. Okay. So again, this predates any practices of Israel or the Hebrews. Okay. So here's some of the gods here. Enlil, okay, as the god of air and atmosphere and storms, Enlil held one of the highest positions of the Sumerian pantheon. His favor was essential to the protection and prosperity of the city states, and he was often appeased during special rituals and observances to ensure he remained benevolent. Okay. Inanna is someone I may talk about one day too. Known as the goddess of love, war, and fertility, Inanna was a complex deity with many roles. Rituals dedicated to Inanna could have involved periods of feasting or fasting, celebration or reflection, depending on the nature of the observance. Now, again, so going back to that calendar I just showed you, you know how you hear Hebrews talk about, was there certain feast days you do, and then there's little things that you do to, if you watch the Jews that we know of today, They do all these little things like the festival booths and all of this other stuff. They did not originate that. That didn't originate with them. Okay. All of these different little things that you do on these different feast days, it came out of Babylon. What these people did was actually reimagine it for their own purposes. Okay. Now, again, you have to ask yourself, you got to be honest with yourself. Why is it that the God that they're claiming, I'm talking about Hebrews now, or Jews, whatever, he is so high, lifted up, set apart. There's no other God before him, but yet this God is looking over his shoulder and literally is copying off of all what these other gods were getting. Okay, including a set apart day. All right. Enki is another one, the god of water, knowledge, mischief, crafts, and creation. And Enki was crucial for the welfare of the Sumerian society. His wisdom was sought through the rituals and omens, and periods of rest might have been observed to honor him, especially to ensure the smooth functioning of agriculture and water management. All right. The next one is Anu. He's the sky god and the supreme deity of the Sumerian pantheon. Anu represented the overarching authority of the heavens. Observances related to Anu would emphasize the order of the cosmos and might include periods of rest to acknowledge his dominion. And then the last one is Nin-Hersag. This is the mother goddess associated with the earth and fertility. Nin-Hersag played a vital role in myths concerning life and health. Respecting her through rest may have been seen as crucial for ensuring the fertility of the land and the health for the people, of the people. Okay. So these were the gods that the Sumerians were dedicating their day of rest to. And their day of rest was called S-A-B-A-T, Sabbath. Everything, and I'll pause here for a second. One more time. Everything, I mean, everything that we are sharing, it is vital and it's important for you to look this stuff up on your own. Never, ever, ever, ever take my word for it alone. Okay. It is on you to take what I am sharing here and for you to honestly look it up on your own. Okay. That's up to you. That is your assignment and is always going to remain your assignment. Okay. And that's not just me, but that's anybody on YouTube. Don't just take someone's word for it and keep it moving. No, you need to look this stuff up on your own. Okay. And I say that all the time, but it's very, very important. Okay. So anyway, so like I said, again, this wasn't going to be a long video. We're going to do this. This is more of a top level thing here. So now you're slowly getting kind of the backdrop here of where the Sabbath actually comes from. All right. It is not a unique thing. It comes from the Babylonians. It also is, it was the Babylonians. We're talking about the Sumerians here, but the Babylonians, they had their own separate thing too. All right. And so recap today in this video so far, we talked about the Babylonian calendar. We did a side-by-side comparison between the Babylonian calendar and the Hebrew calendar. And we saw that it's pretty much a mirror reflection of each other. So we looked at the Babylonian calendar and we looked at, okay, the names, what do these names mean? And we saw that each one of these names were tied to a specific deity. So it doesn't matter if you claim to be a Hebrew or not, you still retain those names, which means you are also tied to those gods. So no Hebrew out here should be banging on anybody about, pagan days, because you're the leader in that. You know what I mean? When it comes to pagan stuff. Okay. And even the word pagan, we can do a video on that. The word pagan itself isn't exactly what you think it means. Okay. That's a whole nother video. Maybe we can talk about that at another time. Okay. All right. So you got it. And then what we did was we looked at the Sumerian people. All right. And we looked at how the fact that they are the ones are one of the influences behind what we know today as the Sabbath. And the word Sabbath, it's one of its origins origin roots comes from the Sumerian concept and word Sabbath, S-A-B-A-T. And it basically means day of rest, or it means midday of rest or something like that. Okay. All right. So we talked about that. And then we said, oh, it rest for who? And then they mentioned gods. Okay. What gods are they talking about? So we just went through all the gods and all of that. We just talked about that. Okay. I just want to give you a recap of a recap. All right. To make sure you get it. Okay. So for the next video, and you can, and I would encourage you, maybe you can look this up on your own. We're going to actually look at, well, it'll be an upcoming video. I'll just say that it'll be an upcoming video. We're going to look at the topic of the influence, one of the major, I would consider one major influence behind what we know today as Christianity. And it's something called Orphism. Okay. Orphism. We're going to look into that, and we'll do that together. But if you're like, I'm pretty curious, I would like to look that up now. Please do. Please do. There are plenty of videos out here that go into it in great detail. But for us, we're going to have our time and we're going to look at it. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison between Orphism and Christianity. And you're going to, and just to give you a heads up, Orphism is tied to Dionysus. Remember we talked about in our last video that we did, I guess it was last week now, we talked about Dionysus and the comparison between Dionysus and Jesus. Well, there was a base that supported, that really was rocking with Dionysus, and that was these people that were into Orphism. We're going to talk about who was the main deity, one of the main deities, behind, or people behind Orphism, and how it kind of merged with Dionysus and all of that stuff. And we'll talk about all of that. Okay. But I'm telling you, so again, what you got to understand is this, is that all of these different religions out here, and, we're just talking Christianity for the most part right now, but Islam is no different. Islam is no different at all. Remember earlier we talked about sin, S-I-N, the god Sin, the moon god Sin. When you look at the symbol for Islam, what is it? It's a crescent moon. Okay. And that is tied to, that has roots to the god Sin. All right. We'll also talk about it's how there's a relationship between moon worship and bull worship. Okay. And you're going to see this reflected within the Bible itself. All right. And there's, if you heard this term, the horns of the altar. Oh my, we're going to get into it. Okay. But yeah, if you want to get into this a little bit further, make sure you join you are more than welcome to join our research group, where we'll talk about all this stuff. And once a week, I try to give them like some, like some study notes, research notes. They can look at this stuff on their own. But family, listen, I will tell you straight up again, I am not an expert. I am not an expert in any of this stuff. I'm just one that is very passionate about getting to the truth. And I will go to people who have been on this journey a lot longer than I've been. And the things I learned, I just simply share it. That's it. And what we're doing is simply want to bring people, show people how you can do it too. You understand what I'm saying? And quite honestly, when you think about it, who is a total expert in any of this stuff? Because if you're in pursuit of the truth, it's a lifelong journey, and it's something where every day you're learning something new. Okay. So, but you can do it too. Just you got to stop being lazy, come off of the plantation, and let's go for the truth. Okay. Well, family, again, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and then we'll be talking again soon about these topics and others as well. All right. Take care, and I'll see you next time.